The sleek bridge of the U.S. Nemesis hummed with quiet efficiency as Captain Hankey Park watched the main view screen. The ship represented humanity's crowning achievement, a perfect blend of power and elegance that had taken Earth's best minds 15 years to design and build. Lieutenant Ji-Soo Lee sat at her sensor station, her fingers dancing across the holographic controls when unusual readings caught her attention. She double-checked the data before speaking. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures ahead. Nothing like this exists in our database." Hankey walked to her station, studying the readings. The energy patterns pulsed in ways that defied known physics. "Full stop. Go to silent running." The bridge crew responded instantly, their training showing in their smooth movements. The Nemesis hung in space, its advanced stealth systems making it nearly invisible. Through the main viewer, they watched as space itself seemed to tear open. Massive ships emerged from what appeared to be fold space, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities. "Scan them," Hankey ordered quietly. The crew worked in tense silence as data streamed in. The alien ships moved with precision, forming a pattern that reminded Hankey of ancient war formations. Jisoo's face paled as new information appeared on her screen. "Captain, they're approaching the Centauri colony on P789. 3 million civilians." Her voice trembled slightly. "Their weapons are powering up." Before Hankey could respond, the alien fleet opened fire. Beams of terrible energy lanced out, cutting through the colony's shields like paper. Buildings crumbled. Defense platforms shattered. The colony's small protection fleet tried to fight back, but their weapons seemed useless against the invaders' shields. "Open a channel," Hankey commanded. "All frequencies." He straightened his uniform, knowing humanity's first contact with this species might determine the fate of Earth. "This is Captain Hankey Park of the Earth vessel U.S. Nemesis. You are attacking a peaceful colony. Cease fire immediately and withdraw." The response came in perfect English, the alien commander's voice dripping with amusement. "Ah, the primitive apes have learned to build ships." A harsh laugh followed. "How entertaining. We've studied your species from afar. Such potential, wasted on mercy and compassion." Hankey kept his voice level. "We're offering you one chance to end this peacefully." "Peace." The alien commander's tone turned cruel. "Your species still thinks in such simple terms. We are the Ascended. We've ruled this galaxy for millennia. Your weapons cannot harm us. Your shields cannot stop us. Watch and learn how true power operates." The alien flagship turned its main gun toward the colony's largest habitat dome. Energy built up in patterns that made the sensor officers wince. Jisoo's screens filled with warnings. "Captain, that weapon's power reading. It's beyond anything we've ever recorded." Hankey watched as the alien beam struck. The habitat dome didn't just break, it disintegrated. 50,000 lives ended in an instant. The alien commander's laughter filled the bridge. "You see, this is efficiency. This is power. Run home to your Earth, little apes. Tell them what you witnessed. And know that one day we will visit your world too." The bridge crew looked to their captain. Hankey's hands gripped the command chair's arms, his knuckles white. He had trained for first contact scenarios, studied diplomatic protocols, prepared for tense situations, but nothing had prepared him for witnessing such casual cruelty. "Sir," Jisoo's voice was quiet. "The colony's evacuation ships are launching. The aliens are targeting them." Hankey straightened in his chair. The Nemesis might be untested in real combat, but he knew his ship's capabilities. Earth had poured its best technology and brightest minds into this vessel for exactly this kind of moment. "Battle stations," he said calmly. "Power up all systems. Jisoo, send a tight beam message to Earth Command. Inform them we've made first contact and are engaging a hostile force to protect civilian lives." Warning klaxons sounded as the crew moved with practiced efficiency. The Nemesis's engines hummed to full power, its advanced weapons charging. They might be outnumbered and facing superior technology, But Han-Ki knew humanity had survived and thrived by overcoming impossible odds. The alien commander's voice came again, noticing their power signature. "Oh, the little apes want to fight. How amusing. Your species truly doesn't understand its place in the universe." Han-Ki didn't respond to the taunt. Instead, he studied the tactical display, looking for weaknesses in the alien formation. The Nemesis might be just one ship, but sometimes, he knew, a single sword strike could end a war before it began. He watched the evacuation ships struggle to escape, carrying thousands of innocent lives. The choice was clear. Humanity would not stand by and watch genocide. Whatever the cost, whatever the odds, they would fight. "All hands," he announced shipwide, "prepare for combat." Officer Sun-Mi Kim sat in the Nemesis's medical bay, trying to keep her face calm as another survivor broke down while telling their story. The young alien child, whose blue scales had lost their shine from stress, trembled as she spoke through the translator. "They came without warning," the child said. "Our entire world burned. My parents. They told me to run. I saw them turn to dust." Sun-Mi gently placed a blanket around the child's shoulders, making notes on her tablet. The medical bay was overcrowded with refugees from 3 different species. The Nemesis had managed to rescue several ships fleeing from the Ascended's attacks. Each survivor carried similar stories of destruction and loss. An elderly creature with crystalline features approached Sun-Mi. "You must understand," it said, its voice creating musical tones through the translator. "This isn't random violence. They're following a pattern. Our scientists track their movements across 3 sectors. They're systematically destroying any civilization that shows signs of advancing technology." Sun-Mi pulled up a star map, letting the crystalline being mark the attacked worlds. A clear pattern emerged. The Ascended were moving methodically, leaving nothing but destruction in their wake. The ship's doctor caught Sun-Mi's attention, pointing to a group of new arrivals. Their bodies showed signs of radiation burns and strange energy weapon effects that the medical team had never seen before. Some injuries seemed to defy the laws of physics themselves. As Sun-Mi compiled her report, the numbers became overwhelming. 17 worlds completely destroyed, billions dead, hundreds of species reduced to refugees. The Ascended didn't just destroy military targets, they eliminated entire civilizations, down to the youngest child. The ship's intercom crackled. Officer Kim to the bridge. Sun-Mi gathered her data and headed up, passing more refugees being settled into every available space on the ship. On the bridge, Captain Han-Ki stood staring at a message from Earth Command. His face was tight with contained anger. "They want us to observe only," he said as Sun-Mi entered. "Document everything, but take no action." Sun-Mi connected her tablet to the main screen, displaying her findings. "Sir, I've confirmed attacks across 3 sectors. They're not just killing. They're erasing entire cultures. Museums, libraries, historical sites, all deliberately targeted." The tactical officer interrupted. "Captain, long-range sensors are picking up another attack in progress. Colony World Delta 7. Population 5 million. Han-Ki watched the screen as massive energy signatures indicated the Ascended fleet dropping out of fold space near the colony. The familiar pattern began. Communication arrays destroyed first, then defense systems, and finally civilian targets. "Earth Command says we're not ready," Han-Ki said quietly. "That one ship can't make a difference. That we need to gather data and prepare Earth's defenses instead." Sun-Mi thought of the child in Medical Bay, of the countless stories of loss and terror. "Sir, my report indicates they'll reach Earth's sector within 6 months. No world has survived their attacks. No defense has worked." The bridge crew watched in silence as the first waves of weapons fire hit Delta 7. Emergency broadcasts filled their communications. Pleas for help, promises of surrender, prayers for mercy. The Ascended didn't even bother responding. Han-Ki paced the bridge, his steps measured and deliberate. Sun Li knew that walk. He was running calculations in his head, weighing options, considering consequences. "Officer Kim," he said finally, "in your analysis of their attacks, did you notice any weaknesses? Any patterns we could exploit?" Sun Li pulled up her tactical analysis. "Their attacks are precise, coordinated. Every ship moves in perfect sync with their flagship. It's their strength. But," she highlighted a section of data, "it could also be their weakness. They operate as a single unit." Han Ki nodded slowly, then straightened his uniform. The bridge crew recognized the gesture. Their captain had made a decision. "Send a message to Earth Command," he ordered. "Inform them that due to communication difficulties, their last order was not received clearly." He paused, watching another section of the colony explode, and then target the ascended fleet. Sun Mi felt her heart race, but she saw the determination in her captain's eyes. They all knew the risks. Court-martial at best, death in battle at worst. But they also knew that sometimes making the right choice meant making the hard choice. As the Nemesis's engines powered up, Sun Mi thought of all the survivors in the medical bay. Perhaps, just perhaps, they would be the last refugees this war would create. The ship moved forward, its advanced systems coming online. They might be disobeying orders, but they were following something more important: their conscience. Now they just had to prove that one human ship could indeed make a difference. In the depths of the U.S. Nemesis's engineering section, Chief Engineer Ta Wan Choi led Captain Han Ki through a maze of humming machinery. The normally bright lights were dimmed to conserve power, casting long shadows across the steel deck plates. "I've been working on this since we left Earth," Ta Wan said, stopping before a sealed door. His fingers danced across a keypad, and heavy locks disengaged with a deep thunk. "Earth Command ordered me to keep it offline. Said it wasn't ready for field testing." The door opened to reveal a chamber bathed in soft blue light. At its center stood a crystalline structure that seemed to pulse with inner energy. Han Ki felt the hair on his arms stand up from the strange field it generated. "We call it the Quantum Cascade System," Ta Wan explained, moving to a control panel. "It works by creating a chain reaction through linked quantum states. In theory, it could take down their entire fleet with one shot." Security Officer Du Yum Kang joined them, carrying detailed scans of the alien fleet. "Their ships are connected through some kind of quantum communication network," he said, projecting the data into the air. "That's how they coordinate so perfectly, but it makes them vulnerable." Han Ki studied the holographic display, watching the energy patterns flow between enemy ships. "Explain it simply," he ordered. Tai Wan pointed to the crystal structure. "Think of their fleet like a line of dominoes, all connected by invisible threads. We hit the first domino just right. The threads pull all the others down." He paused. "But if we miss that first shot, we'll only get one chance," Du Young added. "The energy buildup will burn out our main systems. Miss, and we'll be defenseless." Han Ki walked around the crystal, watching light dance within its facets. "How do we find the right target?" Do Young brought up more scans. "Their flagship isn't the biggest ship, but it has a unique energy signature. See these patterns?" He highlighted complex waves of data. "It's sending command signals to every other vessel. Hit that ship in exactly the right spot, and the quantum cascade will travel through their own network." Ta Wan finished. "Their shields, their weapons, their engines, all linked, all vulnerable." The captain frowned. "Why didn't Earth want this tested?" Tai Wan's face grew serious. "Because if the calculations are off by even a fraction, the cascade could reflect back on us. The Nemesis would." He searched for the right words. "Well, we create a very pretty light show." Han Ki watched his two officers working together, Du Young's security scans feeding into Ta Wan's engineering calculations. The plan was insane. One shot, based on experimental technology, against an enemy that had destroyed entire civilizations. "How long to get it ready?" he asked. 6 hours to bring it fully online," Ta Wan said. Then we need perfect targeting data. Do Young studied his scans. I can get that, but we'll need to get close, really close. Their sensor nets will detect us for sure. Han Ki thought of the refugees crowding his ship, of the colonies already lost. Sometimes the craziest plans were the only ones that worked. Do it, he ordered, but keep it quiet. I don't want the crew worrying about whether we're going to blow ourselves up. The next 6 hours passed in tense activity. Taiwan's engineering team worked in shifts, carefully bringing the quantum cascade system online. Du Young's security personnel analyzed every byte of data about the alien flagship, looking for the perfect strike point. Finally, Taiwan called the captain back to engineering. The crystal structure now pulsed with barely contained power, casting strange shadows that seemed to move on their own. It's ready, he said simply. One shot. Has to hit their quantum core exactly. Du Young found the spot. A junction where all their command signals meet. Han Ki looked at his officers. Chances of success. Taiwan and Du Young exchanged glances. If everything works perfectly, Taiwan said, maybe 30%. If we're off by even a little, he shrugged. Better odds than letting them reach Earth, Han Ki said. He touched the crystal structure lightly, feeling the energy humming through it. Get to your stations. We're doing this now. As his officers hurried to their posts, Han Ki took one last look at the quantum cascade system. Earth's scientists had created it as a last resort, a weapon so dangerous they'd ordered it kept offline. Now it represented their only hope. One shot, one chance to save not just humanity, but every species in the Ascendant's path. Han Ki straightened his uniform and headed for the bridge. Sometimes, he reflected, the difference between suicide and salvation came down to simple timing. The U.S. Nemesis drifted through space, its engines silent, its lights dimmed to bare minimums. Only the soft glow of essential systems lit the bridge as Ji Su Lee worked at her tactical station, her fingers moving carefully over the controls. All non-essential systems are offline, she reported quietly. Even the life support ran at minimum levels, leaving the air slightly thin and cool. We're as dark as we can get while keeping the crew alive. Captain Han Ki watched the main screen where the ascended fleet hung against the stars. They looked like predators, their massive ships arranged in perfect formation around their target. Another helpless colony. In engineering, Taiwan Choi monitored the quantum cascade system. The crystal structure pulsed with contained power, drawing energy from every system they could spare. He had stripped power from everything. Artificial gravity in the cargo bays, heating in the unused sections, even the coffee makers in the mess hall. More power, he muttered, watching the energy readings climb slowly. We need more power. His engineering team moved through the dimly lit compartment, redirecting every spare joule they could find. On the bridge, Ji Su worked with Du Young, combining tactical data with security scans. Their target point was impossibly small, a quantum junction deep within the alien flagship, where all command signals merge. If we miss by even a meter, Du Young warned, the cascade will fail. He adjusted another scanning parameter. And their outer hull is shifting constantly. The target point keeps moving. Ji Su nodded, adding the new data to her firing solutions. Her computer ran countless simulations, each one ending in either victory or destruction. The successful scenarios were terrifyingly rare. The ship's doctor called up from medical bay. The reduced power meant they couldn't run all the life support systems for their refugees. The injured were starting to suffer. They needed to act soon. In engineering, Taiwan finally reached the power levels he needed. The quantum cascade system hummed dangerously, its crystal structure now glowing so brightly they had to wear protective gear to approach it. Ready, he reported to the bridge. But we're so far beyond safety limits now. Captain, if we don't fire soon, this thing will burn itself out. Maybe take half the ship with it. Han Ki acknowledged the warning. They had one chance, and that window was closing fast. Ji Su, How close do we need to get? She checked her calculations again. Too close. We'll be well within their sensor range. They'll detect us before we can fire. The captain studied the tactical display. The ascended ships moved with their usual perfect coordination, their quantum network linking them into a single deadly organism. And somewhere in that pattern was their one chance. There, Du Young suddenly said, pointing to a gap in their formation. They're turning to fire on the colony. For just a moment, their sensors will be focused forward. Jisoo quickly ran the numbers. If we time it perfectly, we might get 5 seconds before they detect us. Maybe 6. Han Ki looked at his crew. They were all young, all brilliant, all chosen for Earth's most advanced ship. Now everything depended on their skills, their timing, their courage. Plot the course, he ordered. Engineering. Divert all remaining power to the quantum cascade system. Medical. Secure all patients. This is going to get rough. The Nemesis drifted closer, running dark and silent. In engineering, Taiwan watched power levels climb into the red zone. On the bridge, Jisoo and Du Young refined their targeting data one final time. Jisoo's hand hovered over her firing control. Years of training, countless simulations, had prepared her for this moment. One shot to save billions of lives. No pressure. The ascended fleet began their turn, weapons powering up to destroy another civilization. The gap in their formation appeared exactly where Du Young predicted. Han Ki watched the distance counter tick down. Too far to fire. Too far. Too far. Almost. All hands, he said quietly into the ship-wide comm. Brace for combat maneuvers. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. He paused. Whatever happens next, I'm proud of this crew. The Nemesis moved forward, silent as a ghost, carrying humanity's last hope in its glowing heart. They all knew the next few minutes would determine not just their fate, but the fate of every species in the galaxy. In engineering, Taiwan whispered an old prayer his grandmother had taught him. On the bridge, Jisoo's fingers tightened on the firing control. The moment of truth approached, and there would be no second chances. Fire. Han Ki's command cut through the bridge's silence. Jisoo's finger pressed the firing control, and the U.S. Nemesis shuddered as the quantum cascade system released its stored energy. A beam of pure white light, impossibly bright, lanced out from the ship. For a fraction of a second, it seemed to bend and twist through dimensions that human eyes couldn't quite process. Time itself appeared to slow as the beam crossed the space between the Nemesis and the alien flagship. In engineering, Taiwan watched his displays with wide eyes. Energy output at maximum, he reported, his voice tense. Quantum stability holding, just barely. The beam struck the alien flagship exactly where Du Young had calculated, the precise point where all their command signals converge. For a moment, nothing happened. The massive alien ship continued its turn, weapons charging to destroy another colony. Then the cascade began. It started as a tiny point of light at the impact site. The light spread like cracks in glass, following the quantum pathways that linked the alien ships together. Their perfect coordination became their perfect weakness. It's working, Du Young breathed, watching his sensors. The cascade is following their command network exactly as predicted. The flagship's shields flickered and died, its weapons powered down. Energy began to leak from its hull in beautiful, terrible patterns. The ship's perfect coordination turned to chaos as its quantum core collapsed. But it wasn't over. The cascade continued, flowing through the quantum links to the next ship in formation. Then the next, and the next. Each vessel's shields failed in sequence, their weapons died, their engines sputtered and went dark. Multiple enemy ships losing power, Jisoo reported, her voice steady despite the tension. The cascade is accelerating. Han Ki watched as the mighty ascended fleet, terror of the galaxy, began to die. Not with massive explosions or dramatic battles, but with quiet, inevitable failure. Their own technology, Their own arrogance in linking everything together became the weapon of their destruction. The alien commander's voice cut through their communications, no longer mocking but filled with disbelief. What? What have you done? This is impossible. We are the Ascended. We cannot be defeated by primitives. Han-Ki didn't respond. The cascade needed no words as it spread through the enemy fleet. Ship after ship went dark, their crews trapped inside as systems failed and emergency power proved useless against the quantum breakdown. Sir, Ta-1 called from engineering. The cascade is consuming their entire network. Their quantum technology is eating itself alive. On the tactical display, they watched the wave of failure spread outward. The ascended ships didn't explode. They simply died, becoming cold, lifeless hulks in space. Their perfect formation became a graveyard of dead metal and broken dreams of superiority. The refugee ships in their cargo hold felt the nemesis shudder as the quantum cascade system finally burned out. Tai-1's voice came up from engineering, tired but proud. System is completely fused. We'll never fire it again, but we didn't need to. Jisoo's hands flew over her controls, scanning the aftermath, confirming all enemy ships have lost power. Their quantum network is completely destroyed. There, she paused, double-checking her readings. They're helpless. Sir. The bridge crew watched in silence as the mighty ascended fleet drifted, powerless. Centuries of their domination, their terror, their destruction of countless civilizations, all ended by a single shot from a single human ship. Send to Earth Command, Han-Ki ordered quietly. Mission accomplished. The ascended fleet has been neutralized. He looked at the dead ships on his screen. And send to all nearby worlds. Anyone with rescue ships. There are crew members on those ships who need evacuation. The quantum cascade had worked perfectly, perhaps too perfectly. But Han-Ki knew that humanity would prove itself not just in victory, but in mercy. They would save the ascended crews, show them that the primitive apes they had mocked understood something they never had. True strength came not from power, but from how you used it. As rescue ships began to appear in the distance, Han-Ki looked at his crew, tired, proud, successful against impossible odds. One shot had changed the galaxy forever. Not bad for a day's work. Well done, he said simply. Sometimes victory needed no grand speeches. The bridge crew of the Nemesis watched in stunned silence as their single strike unleashed a chain reaction through the ascended fleet. The quantum cascade moved like a wave of liquid light, each ship's destruction feeding energy into the next through their linked network. Du Young's sensors recorded everything, documenting the fall of an empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. The cascade is moving faster than predicted, he reported. Their own power systems are accelerating the effect. Ships that had seemed invincible mere minutes ago now sparked with failing systems. The Ascended's mighty weapons flickered and died. Their perfect formation became a scattered mess as ship after ship lost power to maneuver. In engineering, Ta-1 monitored the cascade's progress through his instruments. Their quantum network is collapsing in on itself, he called to the bridge. Each ship's destruction adds more energy to the reaction. It's like a nuclear chain reaction, but through quantum space. The view through the main screen was both beautiful and terrifying. Ships lit up from within as their power cores failed, creating patterns of light that seemed to dance between the stars. The Ascended's arrogance in connecting everything to their command network had become their fatal flaw. Incoming transmission, Jisoo announced. Multiple frequencies. The Ascended ships are. They're begging for help. Han-Ki straightened in his command chair. Record everything, he ordered. And prepare rescue operations as soon as it's safe. Even in victory, humanity would show mercy. The cascade continued its inevitable spread. Ships that had destroyed entire civilizations now drifted helpless in space. The Ascended's perfect technological hierarchy had turned into a perfect path for their destruction. From the medical bay, Sun Mai watched through a viewport with the refugees. The alien child she had interviewed earlier pressed against the window, watching her people's tormentors fall. "They can't hurt anyone else now," Sun Mai said softly. Back on the bridge, Du Young's calculations tracked the cascade's progress. 15 minutes since initial impact. 87% of their fleet is now powerless. The reaction is still spreading through their network. The ascended commanders' voices had fallen silent. Their mockery of humanity's primitive technology had turned to shocked disbelief as their superior systems proved to be their weakness. Jisoo monitored the dying ship's power signatures. Their quantum cores are completely destabilized. Even if they survive this, their technology is useless now. The network that gave them their power is gone. In 20 minutes, it was over. Where the mighty ascended fleet had once hung in perfect formation, now floated a field of dead ships. Their crews lived, but their power was broken forever. Final count, Du Young reported. 312 ships neutralized. No catastrophic explosions. No loss of life. He smiled slightly. The perfect weapon. "Sir, it destroyed their ability to harm others without killing them." Han Ki nodded slowly. Centuries of ascended dominance ended in 20 minutes by one human ship, not through superior firepower or better shields, but through understanding something the ascended never had. Sometimes the greatest strengths could become the greatest weaknesses. "Begin rescue operations," he ordered. "Contact any nearby worlds with ships that can help. The ascended are defeated, but their crews don't deserve to die out here." As rescue ships began jumping into the system, the Nemesis crew watched the final sparks of the quantum cascade fade away. The light show was ending, but its effects would reshape the galaxy. In engineering, Taiwan ran his hand along the burnt-out quantum cascade system. It would never fire again, but it had served its purpose perfectly. One shot, one chance, one victory that would be remembered for generations. The refugees throughout the ship began to celebrate as word spread. Species that had lived in terror of the ascended for generations now watched their oppressors drift powerless through space. The galaxy's greatest threat had fallen not to superior force, but to their own pride. Han Ki looked at his crew, tired but proud, successful beyond their wildest hopes. Sometimes the biggest victories came not from the strongest weapons, but from understanding exactly where to strike. The rescue operations would take days, but the hard part was over. The ascended would survive to learn from their defeat, and the galaxy would know that humanity had arrived not as conquerors, but as protectors. 20 minutes. That was all it had taken to change everything. Han Ki smiled slightly. Not bad for a single ship's day's work. The U.S. Nemesis approached Earth orbit, its hull still bearing scars from its historic mission. News of their victory had traveled faster than their journey home, and ships from a dozen liberated species escorted them like an honor guard. Captain Han Ki Park stood on his bridge one last time, watching his homeworld grow larger on the main screen. The crew worked their stations with quiet pride, knowing they had changed the galaxy forever. "Sir," Jisoo reported, smiling slightly, "Earth Defense Command reports the Celebration fleet is ready for our arrival." She paused, checking her readings. "And there are diplomatic vessels from 27 different species waiting to greet us." The news networks had already named it the Miracle Strike. One ship, one shot, ending centuries of ascended terror. But for Han Ki and his crew, the real victory had come after the battle, in the days spent rescuing survivors and helping rebuild. In the medical bay, Sun Ma sat with the alien child she had comforted before the battle. The child's scales had regained their shine, and she spoke excitedly about returning to her homeworld. The Ascended's defeat meant thousands of refugees could finally go home. Taiwan emerged from engineering, his uniform still stained with the work of keeping the ship running on their long journey back. "The quantum cascade system is completely fused," he reported. "But Engineering Command is already talking about studying it, not as a weapon, as a tool for peaceful applications." Do Young's security teams had spent the journey analyzing the battle data. The Ascended survived. he told Hankey. But their technology is gone. They'll have to rebuild like everyone else. As equals, not conquerors. As they entered Earth orbit, Hankey opened the ship-wide comm one last time. "Crew of the Nemesis," he said, "when we left Earth, we were testing a new ship. We return having proven something far more important, that humanity's place in the galaxy isn't to rule or to hide, but to protect." The Celebration fleet surrounded them. Ships from Earth, ships from the liberated worlds, even ships from species that had hidden from the Ascended for generations. Their lights blinked in salute as the Nemesis passed. Messages poured in from across the galaxy. Stories of colonies rebuilding, of ancient wrongs being made right, of species emerging from hiding to reclaim their worlds. The Ascended's fall had created opportunities for peace that few had imagined possible. Hankey sat in his quarters later, recording his final log entry. He thought about grand statements, about historic words to mark their achievement. But in the end, he kept it simple. Today we prove that humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons, but our resolve to protect others. The Nemesis would never fly again. Its systems were too damaged, its experimental weapon burned out, but it had served its purpose perfectly. One ship, showing the galaxy that sometimes the greatest victories came not from power, but from the courage to use it wisely. As the crew prepared to disembark, they exchanged quiet looks of pride and satisfaction. They had left Earth as explorers and returned as legends, but more importantly, they had returned knowing they had done the right thing. The alien child from Medical Bay joined them on the bridge for their final approach, her scales glittering in Earth's sunlight. "Your world is beautiful," she said through the translator, "just like your hearts." Hankey smiled. The miracle strike would be remembered in history books, but the real miracle was what came after. Species working together, old enemies becoming allies, a galaxy learning to live without fear. The Nemesis docked for the last time, its mission complete. As Hankey prepared to leave his ship, he touched the command chair one final time. They had set out to test a weapon, but had proven something far more valuable. That humanity's true strength lay not in the power to destroy, but in the will to protect. "Ready to disembark, sir," Jisoo reported. Hankey nodded. The celebration would be grand, the ceremonies long, but none of that mattered as much as the simple truth they had proven. One ship, choosing to do right, could change everything. "Let's go home," he said simply. Sometimes, the greatest victories needed no grand words at all.